you ever noticed how some people just don't react right away? You say something surprising, maybe even something emotional, and instead of responding instantly like most people do, they pause. They don't interrupt. They don't rush to fill the silence. They just sit there for a second. Maybe they look at you. Maybe they look away. And in that moment, it can feel confusing. Are they upset? Are they judging you? Did they not care? We live in a world that rewards fast reactions, fast replies, fast opinion, fast emotions. If someone texts you and you reply instantly, that's considered normal. If you take hours, it suddenly means something. If someone says something awkward and you laugh immediately, that's socially smooth. If you pause, even for 2 seconds, it can feel uncomfortable and awkward. But here's what most people don't realize. That pause is not emptiness, it's processing. And psychologically, people who don't react immediately often have something very different happening inside their brain. Let me show you what I mean. Imagine two people hearing the exact same comment. Let's say someone says, "You've been acting different lately." The first person reacts instantly. Their brain treats the comment like a spark hitting dry grass. Emotion spreads fast. Maybe they get defensive. Maybe they laugh it off. Maybe they immediately explain themselves. The second person pauses, not because they didn't hear it, not because they don't care, but because their brain didn't immediately hand control over to emotion. Instead, it created space, and that space changes everything. Research in neuroscience shows that emotional reactions originate in a part of your brain called the amygdala. Think of it like an alarm system. Its job is speed, not accuracy. It detects threats, social tension, and emotional signals faster than your conscious mind can even understand what's happening. For many people, the amygdala fires and they react immediately. The reaction becomes the experience. But people who don't react immediately often have stronger engagement from another part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex. This is the part responsible for reflection, evaluation, and control. It's slower, but it's wiser. Instead of reacting instantly, their brain asks questions first. What did they mean by that? Is this important? How do I actually feel about this? It's like the difference between hitting send immediately and rereading the message first. That pause is the rereading. And interestingly, this trait is often connected to emotional regulation. Emotionally regulated people don't suppress emotions. They experience them fully, but they don't let the emotion hijack their behavior instantly. They create a small buffer between feeling and action. That buffer is where self-control lives. Psychologists sometimes call this response inhibition. It's the ability to delay an automatic reaction long enough to choose a deliberate one. And it's incredibly powerful because most mistakes people regret don't come from what they felt. They come from what they did immediately after feeling it. The angry text, the impulsive reply, the defensive comment that escalates everything. People who pause avoid many of those traps, not because they don't feel emotion, but because they don't let emotion drive the car without supervision. But there's another layer to this. People who don't react immediately are often highly observant. While others are busy reacting, they're watching. They notice tone, facial expressions, timing, context. Their brain is gathering data before deciding what something means. Imagine walking into a room and hearing people laugh. Some people instantly assume they're being laughed at. Their brain fills in the blanks with fear or insecurity. But someone who pauses doesn't jump to conclusions. They let the situation reveal itself. This reduces misunderstandings. It reduces unnecessary emotional pain. Because the truth is, your first interpretation isn't always the correct one. And people who don't react immediately give reality time to clarify itself. This trait is also strongly connected to introspection. Some people live mostly outward. Their attention is focused on what's happening around them. Others live partly inward. Their attention naturally turns toward their own thoughts and feelings. So when something happens, their brain doesn't just react outwardly. It checks inward first. How do I actually feel about this? Not how should I feel? Not how would others react? But what is true for me? That internal check takes time, but it leads to authenticity because their reaction, when it finally comes, is real, not automatic, not borrowed from social expectation, chosen. There's also a fascinating connection between delayed reactions and cognitive depth. Studies on processing styles show that some people are fast processors, while others are deep processors. Fast processors prioritize speed. Deep processors prioritize accuracy and meaning. Neither is better. They're just different. But deep processors naturally take longer to respond because their brain is exploring more layers. They're not just hearing the words, they're hearing the intention, the emotional subtext, the implications. It's like the difference between skimming a page and actually reading it. Both involve seeing the same words, but the experience is completely different. And here's something important. Silence makes people uncomfortable, especially in conversation. When someone doesn't react immediately, others often project meaning onto that silence. They assume disapproval, or awkwardness, or distance. But often it's none of those things. It's presence. It's attention. It's someone taking the moment seriously enough not to rush it. Ironically, people who react slower are often more emotionally present, not less. They're not trying to escape the moment. They're fully inside it. They're letting it unfold before deciding how to engage with it. This trait is also common in people who've experienced emotional overwhelm in the past. At some point, their brain learned that instant reactions can be costly, so it adapted. It learned to slow down, to protect itself, to understand before acting. This doesn't mean they're cold. It often means they're careful, because they know emotions are powerful, and powerful things deserve respect. There's also a quiet confidence in people who don't react immediately. They don't feel the same pressure to perform reactions for others. They don't rush to prove something. They trust their own pace, and that's rare, because most people are unconsciously reacting to maintain social rhythm, to avoid awkwardness, to meet invisible expectations. But people who pause aren't controlled by that urgency. They're controlled by clarity, and clarity doesn't operate on a timer. It operates on understanding. Think about the calmest person you've ever met. Chances are, they didn't react quickly. They listened, they thought, and when they spoke, it mattered. Their words had weight because they weren't automatic. They were intentional. This ability is deeply connected to emotional intelligence. Not just understanding others, but understanding yourself in real time. Instead of being swept away by emotion, they observe it. Almost like watching weather pass through the sky. The emotion is real, but it's not permanent, and it's not in control. This creates psychological stability because their inner world isn't constantly being shaken by every external event. They experience emotion without being dominated by it. And over time, this builds trust. Others begin to see them as steady, reliable, grounded, not because they never feel, but because they don't collapse into reaction. They respond. There's a difference. Reaction is automatic. Response is chosen. And that small difference shapes everything. It shapes relationships, decisions, identity, because your life is not defined by what happens to you. It's defined by how you respond to what happens. And people who don't react immediately are giving themselves the space to respond consciously. But there's one more important truth. If you're someone who doesn't react immediately, you may have been misunderstood. People may have called you distant, or quiet, or hard to read. They may have assumed you didn't care, when in reality, you were caring deeply. Just processing honestly. Your silence wasn't emptiness. It was depth. It was your brain making sure your reaction aligned with your truth. In a world addicted to speed, slowing down can look unusual. But psychologically, it's often a sign of awareness, of emotional strength, of internal stability. So the next time you notice yourself pausing before reacting, don't see it as weakness. See it as space. Space where awareness lives. Space where intention is born. Space where you choose who you want to be instead of letting the moment choose for you. And maybe the real power isn't in reacting fast. Maybe it's in understanding first. I'm curious. Are you someone who reacts immediately or someone who pauses before responding? Let me know in the comments. And if this helped you understand your mind a little better, make sure to subscribe, because the more you understand your own psychology, the more control you gain over the life you create.